Se si dovesse scoprire un giorno che esistono i fenomeni paranormali, che quella data affermazione era autentica, cosa fai? Come ti comporterai? Nella scienza non esistono certezze, non esiste nulla di granitico che sia indiscutibile al di là di ogni possibile discussione. Perché? Perché la scienza procede proprio per miglioramenti, per errori, per prove, per arricchimenti di conoscenze. Quindi questo per dire che molto spesso abbiamo una visione limitata e legata al contesto in cui noi viviamo, che però può arricchirsi, ma quello che è importante nella scienza è quello di mantenere sempre la possibilità di cambiare idea, di cambiare posizione, non perché è comodo farlo, ma perché se non si è aperti al cambiamento non si può capire davvero come funzionano le cose. Che cosa faccio? Che cosa faccio io? Esulto. Cosa volete che faccia? Sarei felicissimo, sarei contentissimo perché abbiamo scoperto qualcosa di fantastico, di fenomenale, e scoprendo che esiste magari scopriamo anche come la possiamo utilizzare. Perché dovrei essere deluso? Perché dovrei sentirmi sconfitto? Ripeto, se mai dovesse succedere, si dovesse trovare che qualunque cosa di quelle di cui ci siamo occupati è vera, è autentica, ci sono le prove, ne sarei entusiasta, ne sarei felice.
UFO News. Today, June 23rd, 2022, Senator Marco Rubio of Florida and Mark Warner of Virginia, both on the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, applaud committee approval of the Intel Authorization Act of 2023. This is from Marco Rubio's Senate.gov website, and this is the press release that we will be covering. Of course, we're only going to cover what is relevant to the UAP issue. Background. The Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year 2023 authorizes funding and ensures that the intelligence community IC has the resources, personnel, and authorities it needs to protect our country and inform decision makers while under robust congressional oversight, including the following key areas. Let's continue. Maintaining strong congressional oversight of and protections for IC whistleblowers who come forward to report waste, fraud, or abuse. This immediately reminds me of what dropped yesterday, which was Luis Elizondo's Inspector General complaint, in which he spoke about reprisals for informing the American people of the UAP issue. So this is on the radar of the Congress. That is protections for whistleblowers. And it could be argued that Elizondo was and is a whistleblower on the UAP issue. These two areas of the Intelligence Authorization Act of 2023 are of particular interest. Enhancing oversight of the intelligence community and Department of Defense collection and reporting on unidentified aerospace undersea phenomena. Let's cover that one first. So for many decades, UAP have been seen in the skies, whether from pilots or people on the ground, and even former Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe has stated that UAP have been recorded from satellites in space. But what some people may not be quite as familiar with is that UAP have also been detected in our oceans and even seen coming out of our oceans for quite some time, and some very compelling corroborated cases of that happening. And some of the best sensors that the United States military has in their possession are actually in the oceans. And some of the most compelling data that has been acquired by the United States military has been censored data recording USOs, unidentified submerged objects moving at extremely high rates of speed within our oceans. And so this is a good sign that the United States Congress is pursuing oversight of data collected in our oceans of these UAP. And UAP are known to be or are assessed to be transmedium capable, which means that they can cross different mediums seamlessly without their shape or their technology changing, because it's the same object from when it comes from space to when it comes into our atmosphere, to when it goes into our ocean, to when it goes from our ocean to our atmosphere into space. We are dealing, as it appears, with technology well beyond anything in the inventory of foreign governments or our own. We just don't have this kind of capability to traverse separate mediums seamlessly. In light of this press release, I really like what journalist Christopher Sharp of LiberationTimes.com wrote. Hashtag transmedium transparency is a cool call to action. And I agree. If there are technological craft in our atmosphere going from one medium to the next of unknown origin, this needs to be known to all human beings on this planet and not be insulated into small components of the national security apparatus. On December 2nd, 2020, journalist Tom Rogan of the Washington Examiner wrote the article titled "Confirmed: Navy's Previously Unreported 2019 Triangle UFO Incident." He goes into USOs, unidentified submerged objects, in this article, and he has been doing a fantastic job covering the UAP issue. Here's an excerpt. It is the 2020 report, however, which is most striking. Shared very widely across the civilian and military intelligence community, it includes an extraordinary photograph taken in late 2019 of a triangle-shaped UFO. The photograph was taken by a FA-18F fighter jet operating off the U.S. East Coast. According to the report, the triangle UFO rose out of the Atlantic Ocean and rapidly accelerated out of sight on a vertical axis. I believe, but have been unable to confirm, that the aircrew responsible for the photo were operating off either the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower or the USS John C. Stennis. Later in the article, finally, the 2020 report carried a heavy focus on underwater operating UFOs, or what the government calls unidentified submersible phenomena. McMillan rightly notes that the Navy is particularly loath to discuss this element of the phenomenon, fearing that doing so will compromise the operation of highly classified Navy acoustic sensor networks. As I've reported, another motive for the government's secrecy here is the apparent ability of some UFOs to travel underwater at speeds of hundreds of knots or more per hour. Combining that factor with the UFO's means of an apparent propensity for occasionally closing with nuclear-powered submarines has the Navy reasonably concerned. Namely, that the silent service isn't running as silent as the admirals would like to admit, and that China or Russia must not be able to replicate this technology. Such a development would shred the credibility and very function of U.S. nuclear deterrent forces, of which ballistic missile submarines are supposed to be the most survivable linchpin. In turn, and in a noticeable distinction with the record report approach of its surface warfare colleagues, the submarine force prefers to write off undersea sensor detections as anomalies, as I found during a June interview with the admiral commanding U.S. submarine forces. Let's do a little thought experiment, shall we? Over the past 4 years, the UAP issue has escalated like never before, to the point where we have a new UAP office within the Department of Defense. Not the Air Force, but the Department of Defense, with bipartisan support from the United States Congress. And I could go on, but let's just keep it there for now. Let's say the credibility of the UAP issue continues to increase. And let's say it culminates with smoking gun evidence provided for review by the American public and the world at large. Now, what is going to happen as a consequence of that? Well, all of the literature and the corroborated UFO sightings and experiences of people all over the world will suddenly be taken much more seriously. And it will probably, in my opinion, become very apparent very quickly that a lot of that stuff is actually accurate and a representative of our reality. What does that encompass? It encompasses so many things. UAP is the tip of the iceberg. It encompasses abductions. It encompasses not just unidentified aerial phenomena, but unidentified submerged phenomena. It ain't just in our airspace, baby, but it's in our oceans. It encompasses people receiving telepathic messages. It encompasses the proposition that not only are we not alone, but there are intelligences meandering in our oceans, potentially having permanent residency in our oceans. It encompasses manipulation by the phenomena itself, potentially, as to why it was able to have this balancing act, if you will, where militaries were able to get high fidelity data, but the rest of civilization apparently was not. It encompasses interests within not only the American government, but other governments to insulate this reality from 8 billion of their fellow human beings. I'm sure I'm missing something. It encompasses the proposition that at some point there is going to be open contact, and whatever is behind these machines is going to stop engaging our world in an overwhelmingly covert way into an overt way. A new era of communication with non-human intelligence, publicly and transparently. How's that? If this is going in the direction I think it is, our world is upside down. Now let's get to that second key area: increasing transparency and promoting efforts to reform the declassification process. Now that's an interesting area, and it aligns with what the current sitting Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, stated in a letter posted on January 5th, 2022. And she writes, "Dear Senator Wyden and Senator Moran, thank you for your 04 October 2021 letter regarding the need to reform of our classification system. It is my view that deficiencies in the current classification system undermine our national security as well as critical democratic objectives. By impeding our ability to share information in a timely manner, be that sharing with our intelligence partners, our oversight bodies, or, when appropriate, with the general public. This reduces the intelligence community's capacity to effectively support senior policy maker decision making and further erodes the basic trust that our citizens have in their government. It is a fundamentally important issue that we must address." Journalist and filmmaker Jeremy Corbell dropped the following tweet today, and he is citing Mark Warner's US.gov website. And he writes, "Look what happened. Senator Warner, does this have UAP related language? Senator Rubio press mentions that there is UAP language in the bill. Is this moving toward UAP amnesty and immunity? Will further legislation include this, and to what degree? At George Knapp." The house of cards is falling, baby. And 4.5 years later, I think, although I can't say for certainty, that it is. But we'll keep you posted as this all continues or implodes, depending upon what the future holds. I hope you enjoyed this update, and I don't have much more to add at this point.